Welcome to Art for Film's Sake. I'm Stephen Reed, and this is Night of the Living Dead by ElvisDead.
Hey, come on, Barb. Church was this morning, huh?
Poor Barbara. She's about to have a very bad day. As if a 6-hour round trip to visit her father's grave at the behest of her presumably tiresome mother, accompanied by her somewhat annoying brother, wasn't bad enough, a global zombie outbreak had to happen too.
Right over there. Well, you used to really be scared here.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now. I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Look! There comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
Johnny.
Sure enough, zombie attacks Barbara.
Oh! No!
Annoying brother defends her.
Help me!
Brother dies at hands of zombie. Barbara enters into a catatonic state of shock. Despite this, she scrambles her way to a nearby abandoned house. But once inside, she's unable to speak much or do anything useful. Poor old Barbara. And for pretty much the entirety of the film, Barbara spends her time in a daze, barely capable of stringing a few coherent words together. She stumbles from room to room, wearing a constant look of bewilderment. When the other characters attempt to communicate with her, they are met with, well, not much really. The sum total of her contribution to the cause is collecting a few logs from the next room. That's it. Poor old Barbara. If you ever find yourself in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, the last person you'd want on your team is Barbara. She's basically useless. Poor old useless Barbara. And yet, the performance by Judith O'Dea is a curiously engaging one. Whilst the other characters are either running around with a plan to save the day, or scheming away to save their own skin, the actress still manages to hog the limelight. It's an impressive feat, considering how very little depth and substance the writers have given the character. It's a performance of its time, perhaps. Distressed woman spends entire film in need of saving by strong men.
You better watch this and try to understand what's going on.
Poor old useless, distressed Barbara. And then, in the final act, she suddenly snaps out of it and rushes to the aid of another poor, distressed woman, only to be dragged away by the zombie horde. Her guts and entrails gobbled up. Poor old useless, distressed, eaten alive Barbara. And here's why I love this poster by ElvisDead. It doesn't just capture the moment when poor old Barbara meets her end. It doesn't just brilliantly encapsulate that split second of sheer terror as the realization of her imminent demise hits. What this amazing poster also does is send out a stark message to the viewer. Don't be a hero. Don't be like poor old Barbara. Oh, why didn't you just stay useless, Barbara? What on earth were you thinking? It's a striking moment because when most films seem to be full of heroic moments and celebrating heroic characters, this film does the opposite. Night of the Living Dead is rightly lauded for inventing the zombie genre as we know it. I love it for that, but I think I love it more for its refusal to conform to type. There are no heroes here. There is no happy ending. It's a bleak outlook perfectly summed up by Barbara's rush of blood to the head and followed, seconds later, having said head chomped to pieces. The way the artist has captured the horror of the moment, those horrible hands about to drag poor Barbara to a grisly death, is superb. ElvisDead really has a knack for likenesses. The drawing style is so gritty and textured. Even those faithfully rendered titles and credits, nicely placed at the bottom left there, feel like they're about to be dragged away too. It's an astonishingly powerful image that leaves you feeling uneasy and helpless, when actually it's giving you some incredibly helpful advice. Don't be a hero. Like poor old Barbara.